Hello and welcome to the podcast by Derek and James called 2 of 16. James and Derek are here. So this is essentially a retrospective, looking back from what's happened ever since the last podcast. And one topic that I can really think of right now is I feel myself understanding myself more and more and really just embracing and understanding that more and more. And to get specific, something that I've created in my own personal YouTube channel is this whole idea like, oh, INTPs, don't try to TE, just TINESI, right? In other words, just think of the experiments you want to do and experiment, do those. And as I have gone down that path, which has been really fun, I've come to realize just how true it is. And also, what I've discovered is, okay, so the story is there are all these things I do want to do. And I have perhaps like 8 books at home right now that are waiting to be read. I have 4 experiments that I've lined up waiting to be done. And what I have seen is there are many things I want to say about this, but what I've seen, first of all, is now with this list of things to do, it becomes very clear. It becomes very natural for me to want to do the TE for this. Like, okay, I have all of these things I want to do. When am I going to do them? And so I started like time manage, like I started scheduling. I started thinking about like, okay, by what time do I want to get this one done? Because it's almost in service. I feel like my TI, like I realize in service of me, my TE and I experiments, I'm totally willing to do the TE organization in order to get that done. So that's something I've kind of realized today. I was like, before I come to this podcast, I have, which book do I want to read? And I really pushed to do that. And so I'm like 2 chapters into Jung's book, Man's Search for Meaning. No, not Man's Search for Meaning, sorry. Man and His Symbols.
Man searching for man.
Man and His Symbols. And
Symbols.
I find that very rewarding. And I have more to say about this later because I want to juxtapose this, compare this against TE. But that's the first thing that I've kind of come to realize.
Well, I mean, this is actually, you were mentioning about creating the list and working on the things that you want, on the list. And that's actually where the idea for Texecute came in, which is an app that I started working on, but I put aside for the moment. TE execution. It's at first it was supposed to be an accountability thing for myself because I was doggy styling it, or what was it, dog fooding my application. And then I realized actually while it doesn't really matter for whom it is, I thought, well, actually it's better suited for people who do have trouble organizing these things and executing. So the idea is to, obviously you still have to do the things, but I want it to kind of like sort of automate the process for you. So like you have your list, maybe you could just feed the list to it of the things you want to do. And it's going to like kind of create a time, like using AI, I hope maybe to kind of create a timeline for those things. Like, oh, well, this type of thing usually takes a week. So let's give him a day each to work, little by little, create the thing. And then, you just kind of prints out your little, maybe an Excel sheet or something, or just something graphically pleasing, so that you can then just go, okay. And like, if you disagree with something, you can kind of like change the timelines or just say, you know what, I don't want a timeline for this one. So, that way you don't have to actually, because it's the starting. I feel like that's the hardest for people. Like when you want to clean your room, I mean, stupid things like take a shower, like little stuff. It's the getting started. Once you're in there, you're fine, right? And then you get it done, as annoying as it might be to do those things. Whereas with this, it's like, how can we make it easier for you? Because then you have more time for your TINESI.
Yes, and that's interesting. C.S. Joseph, the things he says about the types is that INTJs are actually, it's difficult for INTJs to get started. They're excellent finishers.
Yeah.
Like, give me something to do, I'll just like power down and get it done. INTPs, actually starting and finishing is not really what we like to do. We are more informative and background. That's the way that he describes us. But I find that very interesting. What do I want to say?
I think of it as a companion. That's the whole point. It's like, it's just somebody there. Yes. Like, honestly, it's like having someone care for you when you get older. Like, it's just there to go, hey, here's a suggestion for today if you haven't thought about it. If not, if you don't have time, if you just, or not time, but like if you just, it's not what you want to do, then just here to tell you, hey, and then you can kind of adjust it. I would like it to adjust itself. So like if it sees that you haven't done anything, so like off topic or like jumping around here, it's like, it's an accountability booster, but in the sense that, I would like to have levels. So you can set like easy, medium, hard. Hard means it's like something that's beneficial for INTJs. Like, dude, you got to get this stuff done. Like where it's on your case. Then have like INTP mode where it's just like, hey, just here to let you know you wanted to do these things in case you forgot. Anything look good today for you that you just sparks your interest or whatever? And then you go, yeah, okay. Click and drag and just say, okay, I started this. I'd like to have a voice, make it so this voice is like, yeah, I started that. Maybe you can leave a little voice message there and then it can transcribe that and figure out what you got done. Maybe it'll adjust based on that. You can talk about like, yeah, today I'm just feeling really depressed or tired or very or whatever. So could you please adjust my schedule for these items? And then it'll just go through everything that's there and just kind of adjust that for you. Whereas again, hard mode will be like, dude, if you don't get this done by Tuesday, you're screwed. Like, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have a few questions. One is, would this fit what you're looking for if it were integrated with Google Calendar, where you give it the test and then your calendar is now filled with all your tests and the estimated timeline? That
would be an integration that would come later. So that's auxiliary to the base functionality. I tend to like to create the core features of something before I branch out, because like obviously I'm gonna have qualms with everything that I didn't create anyway. Because I just don't know everybody's a fan of Google Calendar. I have trouble with it. I have so many Google accounts, so like I end up with 15 calendars. So how's that useful? In fact, It would be nice if I could draw all of those together. There's an app idea for idiots like me that have 15 email accounts. Because like I'll have, and you might be asking, why do you have so many? It's just like I will have accounts just like kind of useless. Like this is where stuff I don't care about should go. Like people I know that are going to spam me. That's an account. Or an account, I made one when I was living in Germany. I want everything related to everything I do in Germany to be here. Again, you probably could achieve this all with one account, but that's just not how I roll. Yeah. And so on and so forth.
I see. Second thing I want to bring up was, now that I've learned all this about myself, I recently watched a Jordan Peterson video where he talks about scheduling. Mm-hmm. And what he essentially says is, if you're having trouble scheduling and you don't like scheduling, it means that you're scheduling wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're treating scheduling like it's a tyrant that's like constantly trying to like get you to do stuff you don't want to do. What you actually want your schedule to be is, you want it to be like, you think of your favorite, the absolute best day you can ever think of, and then you schedule things out that way. And that's what I've been talking about with how an INTP thinks, is that's been very freeing. The other freeing thing that I've realized about scheduling is, like, if you don't meet the timeline, that's completely fine. I mean, keep that in mind and understand like what was it that caused that. So that you can adjust and schedule, like become more conscious of how to schedule in the future, because time is still happening, right? And the scheduling idea, I'm trying to refine my track.
Find yourself while I just say, like, this is, I guess, an indirect connection between the motivation and in the accountability app that I was discussing, It's not meant to be. That's why I said INTP mode. I didn't use the right words, but the whole idea is the way people schedule things should exactly say, think of the best day of your life, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That works for you. Maybe not for other people. Maybe some people really like that structure. They like someone telling them what to do, for example. And so that is equivalent to, it's freeing for them perhaps. So my point with the app is I just want the app to be, that's why I used the word companion. That was my, not the best term for what you were describing, just to kind of help people with creating schedules and not to think of it as the enemy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree.
That's why we avoid it. That's why so many people, they say it. You'll hear them say, "Well, I need to create a schedule." It's on their top of their list of things to do. They never do it because it's like everything. It's like everything on that list is stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's not what a to-do list is. A to-do list should be only things you want to do. In fact, there should not be a single item on a to-do list because the whole point is these are things in the future that will get done. Yep. Just matter of how or when, not things I don't want to. In fact, you should have another list for that. That's fine. Have a, what would you even call that?
Things that you don't want. You don't want to do.
Don't want to do list. Like things I ought to do. Like that's just not a to do list in my opinion.
Yeah. I think I've realized that TE people have shared how they do things, and then everyone thinks that they have to do it that way, and so they're putting the cart before the horse. They're saying, okay, in order to succeed, I need to get some things done. And they're like trying to put on this TE hat, and it's not fitting. And so that's kind of what I've come to discover in my own INTP journey. It's like, oh, let's put that aside. I don't really know what I want to do. I just know that these are the things. So before I go there, I want to finish the thought I had, which was, it's gone. So I'll just keep going this path.
Sorry, I thought I was helping by like going on about what I was talking about and give you time. It didn't work out. Yeah, that means it's not worth talking about.
Okay, it's gone. So I'll just go full on to this track, which is what I've come to realize, I believe, is everyone is one way you can think about MBTI is each type has a different reality almost. That's my current theory is each type has their own reality. And unless you speak in their reality, good luck getting them to do things because it's not real. And so for me, TINE, my theories and what those suggest, the possibilities that they provide. If I speak from that place, then I am in my reality.
Even the wording get someone to do something, is that something an INTP would do?
That
what I mean is, are you telling, do you really, like if someone's sitting in front of you, do you want to get them to do anything?
No.
So that's, even that in and of itself is a reality of a different type that isn't INTP.
Yes, I mean, so
the wording and just idea.
Exactly. So there are certain words that have, perhaps they will mean more to me in the future, but right now they don't mean much. Accountability, responsibility, these words, I'm sure for TE, they mean a lot.
I mean, integrity is also in that stack of importance.
And I believe it is because that is real to you. Because TE is this view out here, like in order for my reality to exist and work, that has to be there for things to make sense.
And also T is a group mentality thing because it's extroverted. So it's like accountability to not just to myself, but to everyone that is in my reality.
Yes. Yeah. However, it's accountability and responsibility. And I mean, I'm sure this will rub the T people the wrong way. But for me, it's never been like how I conduct myself.
Well, hold on. What about TI though? Would you not feel accountable to yourself internally, to your theories and ideas? And responsible to be true or genuine in those thoughts and theories? Well,
okay. I would, sure. I would use the word true to self, authentic. Authentic, one way you can think of authenticity is being accountable and responsible for my own created thoughts and ideas and making sure that those are how I live what I live by, perhaps. So speaking to each type's reality,
Yeah.
starting from there, I went out, I branched into all of these different places that I know, or to say the high level way I think my reality is what I consider real is understanding and my questions. And essentially what I did was I threw all of those into my own reality hopper. I got all of these books that I want to learn towards. I have all these questions that I want to answer. And then now what becomes real, now that I have filled my life with all of this stuff, is, okay, how am I going to do this? Because what I've seen is I can do it faster. I mean, sure, I can read one book a week, or I can read one book. I don't even know how fast right now, but maybe like one book every 2 days.
What about that idiot that with the Lamborghinis? Like, how many books does he read a day, apparently?
Oh yeah, so that's
his name?
Tai Lopez.
Tai Lopez.
So, but his definition of reading a book is very different because he's very TE.
He reads the cover and the back, and then he just moves on.
Well, TE is like, I have these certain goals that I need to get done. In this book might be something that helps me get there. So I'm going to look for those. And then as soon as it feels like there are none of those left, I'm done. I'm done with that book.
That's kind of what I've been trying to get back to doing, because like I've been torturing myself to try to read every word on a page. Sure, I will. I was going to say I will understand it better, but I don't. I actually understand it less.
Uh-huh.
I will read the title. Like if the person is a good writer, the first sentence, I forgot the name of the sentence, in a paragraph should tie together everything, because everything else is supporting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I will still skim, and if I see something that's sort of like, oh, this is different from what the first sentence said, or if it's a long paragraph, I will read that. But like I've been doing a lot more skimming now, and so I'm reading much faster, and I'm getting what I need out of it. And frankly, it probably wouldn't matter anyway, because I don't tend to like really absorb information from other people anyway. I had a question though, and I'm cutting you off a lot.
Oh,
here.
go for it. Yeah.
You said you have questions and you answer them. You purchase books, you read them, and now therefore you, I assume, have answers. How does I almost said does one, but how do you decide what is a reputable, trustworthy source? That is an issue with me.
Yes, so that's a very TE thing. It's
Sure.
a very TE thing because I feel TE doesn't naturally have an internal framework by which to decide whether things sound true or false.
So you're still going off of an existing network that I'm assuming is built throughout time of your existence up until this moment in the present, with which you then are making decisions somewhat like NI does.
Yes. So I think TI and specifically INTPs, we're constantly building a theoretical framework of how everything in the world works. Or at least
from the view of your reality. Or somehow.
Well, see,
reality.
Perhaps it's like NI, where it's completely disconnected from everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I take every like essentially I when you say something, I take it and I see if it fits my internal framework, and as soon as it doesn't, I raise that question. I'm like, hold on, but what about this? And so my reality is essentially that internal framework.
So, because I was going to ask, well, what if I wrote a book on those topics and just wrote a whole bunch of answers, same as Jung, but like they're all different from what you expected? Would you then just be like, well, I don't trust this person?
Well, I would.
How do you know what I said fits or not?
Well, NE says, okay, let's read it and see, and then I read it all, and like if enough of it just doesn't fit my framework and I try, like I have a lot of evidence and trust that this framework is true, then I will pretty much say like, oh, there's I don't know, and then I could basically put the book away and say like, this is not the right book.
I'm allowing myself to free flow all over the place here today.
Yeah.
Has it ever happened such that you've created such an intricate framework and be like, I got all this information, I'm just so certain that this is true to 99.99%, whatever percentage.
Yeah.
And to have that turned on its head. Like someone
Oh,
just
yeah.
disproves something, like just without a doubt. Like suddenly just like, you know what? Personalities don't exist, or reality doesn't exist, or some interesting like what's the type of quantum physical kind of thing that just like becomes proven somehow. I'm not really saying what I'm trying to say, but like, have you ever had it just turned on its head?
Oh, absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
what do you do from there?
So I think this is a key part of an INTP's path, where before I got to the point where, so I think a key point in the INTP path is realizing, oh, logic isn't reality. It's just one way to look at everything.
Okay.
And then there's still more beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And you discover that I think MBTI is a great way to discover that, because you realize people are existing without logic at all.
Yeah.
and like, how? Well, there's more.
That in my mind.
And I would say maybe 5 years ago, for like a 2-year period, that's when I discovered like all the spiritual things I talked to you about, where I say, affirmations, things like this. That's me realizing, oh, there's more beyond just pure logic, and I can step beyond my framework, and I can consider that as well. And what,
for example, what goes beyond logic?
What goes beyond logic is, I can wrap it all up by saying NE, which is the unknown. What goes beyond logic for me is the unknown.
Okay.
And for example, I'm talking to you right now, and your way of thinking is completely alien to me. And that's fine, because I will find the logic to it later.
But then it's not beyond logic, it's still logic, just unfound logic.
Yes. So that is the transition point in an INTP's life, I believe. Mm-hmm. I believe if an INTP is essentially immature, they rely heavily on TISI, and then they say everything that's illogical is wrong. That doesn't make sense according to the theories that I've created in my own life. That doesn't make sense. But then the transition period is realizing
openness outside of that.
Even if something doesn't make sense, it could still be true.
Yeah.
It could still be true.
I had to do the same.
And I have no idea. The only way that I can consider that is if I can consider that my logical theories are not reality, and there's more beyond that. And all I can do is say, well, let's just see what this is.
Yeah, see, I handle that slightly differently, and I think it's probably even harder for me to allow things to be said outside of what I believe. That doesn't make much sense. What I mean by that is, if you try to tell me that something isn't the way I believe it is, you better prove it.
Oh, okay.
Which sounds a little bit S directional. I guess it might be the SE feeding my NI, because my NI is like, I could imagine that, but I'm busy with other stuff right now that's better. And then it's like, well, T's like, well, I'm working on what NI told me to work on, or whatever. I mean, I'm working on something. And then FI is whatever, whenever I'm relaxing. But like SE is just going to be like, well, what you said just doesn't fit in. And I guess that's FI messing around with SE a little bit. FI is like, that goes against my beliefs. It goes against my values, or whatever it might be. And therefore you're wrong. And so I'm much more immediate to saying I don't believe that than you would be.
Well,
in that sense where you said like being open to other possibilities, where I'm very, I guess that's the JP difference.
Well, I would also suggest that this is what you're talking about is TE.
Perhaps.
And TE, from what I've seen of TE, is this is what we all agree is true, or not all.
That's the problem. It's like, who is the all? And I'm talking about, like, right now I'm thinking, well, TE is limited to my experiences, though. If someone outside of what I claim to know says something, I immediately just, well, who are you? Whatever. You're not in the group.
Well, okay, that's what you mean.
That's what I'm trying. I can't describe what that is.
But when I hear you say, who are you, you're speaking to a certain value. which is like you are not a reputable source. So a reputable source is something that you can accept.
Yeah, so it has to be reputable. That's probably why I mean, obviously, I selfishly asked you, what do you do when you get a source that isn't reputable? Like I wrote, I'm not reputable in psychology, for example. If I just suddenly wrote a book that like goes against everything Jung said, I think you're more likely to throw that in the trash than to accept it.
So let me speak to my own internal process. First of all, what you're saying is TE, I believe, which is, and you're looking out here, and if all, I could say it abstractly, almost like if all of the intersecting lines allows that fact to exist, then you can accept it.
Yes.
Which is like, it's a reputable source out here. Enough people are using it out here and they haven't found anything wrong with it. I can accept it.
Yeah.
However, for me, I essentially distrust TE completely. There is no reputable source for me. I'm instead building a logical framework inside that is self-referential. And if enough incoming information disagrees with it, now I have to reconsider my internal framework and perhaps I'm wrong about something. But none of this references anything outside. I don't really use reputation to consider anything.
I mean, I don't want to say that I blindly accept reputable sources. Because I don't want to use the word fact checking thanks to how things are going in the real world these days. But I do fact check. And there's also this weird intuition thing going on. I'm just like, that doesn't feel right. And I won't believe it. It could be anyone. It could be God saying it to me. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because I don't believe that.
Yeah.
So there's that, which is FI. I feel interact, because that's internal. And then external, TE, group mentality.
It could.
Mentality, group, agreement. So however you want to look at it.
Yeah, I feel it could also be, I might propose that it's NISE, where it's like you're saying something and that's just not what I've seen.
That's SE, okay.
SE, well, NI builds off of SE.
It does, but it's still so not anything, but yet it's probably right. I just like, it's indescribable. I feel like the more I learn, the more I think about it, because I'm actually probably doing it even more often than I originally thought. I realize even when I thought I was doing SE, I feel like I'm still doing NI. Like that's how out of touch I am. And then I think of Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates?
The song Out of Touch.
Oh.
I was going to start singing it, but I won't.
Okay. I'm retracing
you were talking about the difference between TA and TI. So for you, how TI works, which honestly, I mean, it's always the opposite because it's literally just an internal version of TI. It's just like where I'm looking at group stuff, you're not accepting that, but you're starting here and going, you're like, okay, you pull something in and go, okay, how does that? You have these two things. You're like, nope, doesn't match.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't match. Whereas I'm doing the opposite. I'm like, it's easier to describe yours than mine. The opposite is, what do I have inside?
The opposite is like hold on, this is reputable. Like it's out here. Why are you saying something different?
So then the FI kind of interacts with that. Why are you saying something different? Well, it could be different in the vision as well.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Let's table that because that doesn't sound right. What I'm saying doesn't sound even less right.
I see. Oh yeah, we can let that simmer.
Yeah.
I will say that what directs me for what to learn next is like it's very unconscious, to be honest. But when someone says something and it sounds to me like, oh, that could add to my framework that I have right now, and it's so my NE is
listening, because I was wondering what's hearing those things.
That is NE.
Okay.
So like I have my framework, and then the framework is, it's almost like my framework is conscious of the parts that like aren't complete, and then I hear something. Oh, that could complete this, and so I gather in that direction.
Okay.
And this, what I'm realizing is this process is very real to me, and so and it's almost like as I go in this direction, it feels very engaging. And then I feel almost like, well, TE can be used in service of this, where I say like, this is the direction I want to go, and now that I know the direction, how do I make this even faster? Because that feels worth doing to me.
This term fast, moving more quickly, what's the motivation behind that? Because that almost it doesn't feel very native INTP to me, to do anything quickly. Not because you are slow. I mean, I just feel like the whole point is to take your time,
well,
so to speak.
Time has no meaning to me,
right?
From anyone else's perspective.
Fine, that's okay. Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective, it's just perhaps I can say like it's an interesting experiment to find out how fast I can go down this road.
Okay.
Of TINE, just turning my whole life into a lab where I learn more.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds almost like turning into like a Superman of, if I do this really fast, like how fast can I go?
So that in and of itself is the experiment.
Yes.
Increasing the velocity.
Yes.
Of learning.
And in a way, it's connected to the idea of maximizing TINE, where like, hey,
can you not see how that? You said maximize, so I'm thinking optimization. Is there a point in space where the velocity is too fast for TINE and therefore becomes counterproductive?
I don't think so. I think I'm doing TINE and I'm almost like moving everything else out of the way so that this can be as clean as possible. And in a way, time almost kind of gets in the way of TINE. And so by doing this, I'm like purifying TINE.
Yeah, but more or less ignoring time. Because I'm doing the same thing with NI. It's like if I sit and look at a clock while trying to imagine something, it's just not, I won't. That's SE, I'll just be looking at the clock.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing is it's like, if you're caring about honestly anything outside of what you're working on, if you're not fully diving into what you're working on, I'm using the word work, so ignore that term because that in and of itself sounds like TE. The experimentation that is occurring should be uninhibited. And time, whether you like it or not, I mean, obviously time is still affecting you physically in the physical world. You want to not allow it to affect you whilst you're experimenting or doing TINE.
Yes.
Right.
So, and I can feel it affecting me. And that's why
I feel like everybody feels time affecting them. I mean, it's just nobody likes it. It's just, it is what it is. We're all screwed. We only have so much time.
Exactly.
On the earth.
Exactly. Like to say it practically, my experience has been like, oh, I have all these books I want to read, and it's the end of the day, and I haven't read any of the books. What happened? And so that's me being like, okay, there are these experiments I want to run.
What do you do to yourself then? Because I'll tell you, I will beat myself up. For no reason whatsoever.
No. I don't.
You're just like, well, tomorrow.
No. See, like, well, if I do it, like, I don't want to do that either, because I know.
So no reflection.
Well, there is reflection, and the reflection is like, okay, oh, time does matter here, because if I don't factor that in, then none of these experiments will get done. So it's like the first step was like, okay, what experiments do I want to run? Oh, this is really exciting, but nothing's moving. Why not? So I need to put it in a timeline.
Time's not necessarily a factor, though. I feel like it's as long as you are always in a perpetual state of doing, you are progressing. It's when you are not doing that suddenly it's like you're aware of time, aware of just, oh, today's Monday, tomorrow's, who cares about the names of days and what that the sun and the moon are doing stuff around you. Well, the sun's not doing anything. We're moving, but whatever. Sorry.
The sun's moving, sure, but anyways.
Who cares? It's more or less, am I doing those things? Am I not being distracted by, unfortunately, work or sleep or having to nourish one's body with foods and things? Like, as long as you're experimenting, you're moving forward. So time really doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because you're still like, it's not getting done. How you can't gauge that without time, because there's no such thing as getting something done in a certain amount of time if time doesn't exist.
Yes. And I feel almost like my relationship with time is, it's kind of like having a messy room. Yeah. So actually, like, I think this kind of organization kind of stuff kicks in when it has to do with TINE, where, for example, I can imagine an INTP, like hardware engineer, who wants to learn all this stuff about hardware. They can get really asinine about how clean their bench is between experiments. Because I want to do this next experiment, but everything is like I can't find this stuff, and like I can't move on to the next experiment because stuff is always in the way. And then they clean it because like the physical world is getting in the way of their experimentation. And so that's when they start cleaning stuff up.
Are you sure? I can still see where efficiency can be helpful though in experimentation. If things are where they are, whether that looks organized or not, I don't think matters. I think it's whether or not you know it's there.
Exactly.
It's when you go, where's my screwdriver, and you can't find it. That's when you've now screwed up.
Yes. And but you can kind of hear that that's not valuable in and of itself. The organization isn't valuable. It's
not
in service of the experimentation that it becomes something that you want to get out of the way.
If I were you and I'm experimenting, I wish that my hands, I could just push a button and the thing that I need, my fingers turned into them, because that would be the easiest way to continue the experiment. Boop. You'd never have to stop TINE. Whereas the moment you have to stop and go, where's the tool I need? You've already you've stopped. It's similar to when I'm working too. It's like I talked to you about the mouse and keyboard thing, which maybe we can touch base on.
Mm-hmm.
That works for both of us, doesn't it? You seemed excited about that because we both saw the benefits. Well, for me, it's temporal. For you, it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to describe? You could probably do more concisely than me, like what I'm talking about with the mouse and keyboard, and how that might tie into experimentation. Or is that too on the spot?
Well, you're talking. You wanted the ability to be able to switch between two computers really fast with your Bluetooth devices, mouse and keyboard, and.
Yeah, so okay, I'll take over a little bit. I have a Mac laptop in front of me, and then in front of that I have a keyboard. Here's a laptop, here's a monitor. None of these things are set up in such a way that I can just use both computers simultaneous is not the word, as fast as possible. So I want to be able, honestly, the laptop that's here is a Mac, and also we are talking about a Mac and Windows situation. This screen is being used by the Windows laptop, and then you have the Mac laptop, and then the keyboard is connected to Windows. And all I was saying is what I end up messing up with is like sometimes like what I'll do is I'll move this keyboard out of the way and start messing around on the Mac, and then I'll grab the mouse and think it's connected to the Mac and it's not. And then I'll start clicking stuff, well, this is not working, and then I mess something up on my Windows machine. And even just that idea of moving the keyboard out of the way, all that stuff takes time and it screws up everything I'm doing. Mm. And so I just said, well, I would like to just be looking at this screen. I'm working on my Windows machine, push the button. And literally the time it took my eyes to move is the amount of time it took me to push the button. So there's simultaneous movement in sync. And then I can just do and work on my Mac. Same with the mouse. So all I wanted is a toggle that could do that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that somewhat ties into what you were saying with the clean desk. It's not a matter of efficiency or what was the word? It's not about organization. It's about optimization.
Yes.
While I would say organization could be a subset of optimization.
Yes.
The core value or the important thing here is the optimization in and of itself.
Yes, and
for different reasons.
And here's another thought I was having about this. One way you can think perhaps about the difference between how TE sees the world and TI sees the world is just the result you're going for. Mm-hmm. And so TI the result that you're going for is understanding. Understanding, and you just want to get everything else out of the way so that you can understand more and faster.
And I want to get everything out of the way so I can get more stuff done.
Yes, results, so external results.
Results.
Understanding. Understanding. And so as long as I'm trying to move in that direction, I will organize stuff in order to get there faster. But if someone points me directly towards a result to do, I feel like I won't see much need to do it, because like I don't see like it doesn't logically make sense why we're doing it. If it doesn't logically make sense why we're doing it, I can't really track. This is just another task.
That's why you asked for the why. That's why I learned very early on with INTP, don't ever, if you want to ask them to do something, of course they'll oblige you if they want to help you, but they certainly won't oblige, or they will go kicking and screaming if you don't tell them why you believe something should be done or why they're doing it for you or with you. The why is important.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's why and how. Obviously, how is because I want the result part of it, whereas the why is also important. It's like, well, why would I? Does this fit in with what I'm doing at all? That's why I need the why as well.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's not something that you want to do. Just like I keep smiling, laughing the whole way through this conversation. I'm thinking, SE dumb, SE dumb. Like every single word out of our mouths today would have just been like, what are they talking about?
Oh yeah.
What the why? What? Yeah. Or like just not even listen, just like, oh, idiots.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go do stuff.
Yeah.
I can understand the TE part of that, but I can't, it's like, yeah, well, everything we're talking about is theoretical and just kind of like all over the place. I think it just makes me laugh because I'll randomly think about, not randomly, but I'll think about SE DOMs.
Yeah. So, I mean, my dad is an SE DOM.
Yeah.
ESTP. And when me and my mom talk, my mom is INFP. My dad just gets silent. And I mean, he's kind of learned that this is important to us, so it's okay.
That's awesome. Because like the respect is the thing that I think is important and something I want people to understand more. Like just like because this happened to me literally, I hate that word. It happened to me yesterday. I'm sat next to an ENTJ. And then in front of me are two SEs. There was an ESTP. I'm not SE, sorry. An ESTP and an ISTP. And so I noticed that while we easily were having a conversation, suddenly it was super, super easy and like very intuitive for her and I to talk and for those two gentlemen to talk with each other. But the topics were very much S and N. And then we'd come back and then it was just like a mixed bag of it was just, I don't even recall what we were talking about. It's just the way we talk still sticks. Like I'm still talking from an N sort of way. And they're still like just, yeah, but what's this? What's that? What's this? What's that? And so I'm like, well, it's like this. And then because at least I have SE anyway. So I'm just like, what's this? It's like this thing right here. And so like, I can speak their language, but it was just really fascinating to see that because I find that I spend, especially with engineers, that's a misstatement. I have been around a lot of intuitives as of late, and it's very refreshing, believe it or not, to be around people with S in their, I mean, I'm trying to think ISTP is like what? Like ESTP is SE DOM and like, that kind of thing. So it's just like, it was nice to just even observe that.
Yeah, and ISTPs are also, I mean, auxiliary SE. Yeah, the second SE.
Okay, yeah, so they are pretty high. I was thinking pretty high in the stack there, so yeah.
Yeah, and they will just over time they will disengage from intuitive speak. Eventually, they're like, oh, like let's just talk about stuff right here.
Yeah, I could tell like one guy, he was just listening and then he would just ask you a question because I could tell it was just like, yeah, I'm trying to absorb what you're saying, but it was great because it's like instead of him trying to appease myself or pretend to be like interacting, he didn't do any of that. He just was true to who he was, and that I thought was great.
Yeah, what I've experienced, my dad has gotten much better, but our conversations. I mean, if we can both speak TI. And so if we speak TI, we have a great conversation. But as soon as I start telling a story, he's gonna need the SE details in order for me to tell a story. I would say like, oh, so to fill in what that means is, I would tell a story about me working with my friend about this podcast, and then you say, what's your friend's name? Where is he from? Like, how do you know him? What job does he have? You know, like these things.
Very Korean sounding.
Well, but all I know is it would feel psychically, mentally, like he's putting like these tripwires in my path. I'm like, I'm trying to tell you a story right now, and you're asking me for these things that I don't want to think about.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if they're doing it on purpose. But I feel, and then I'm like, well, they're not intuitive, so they're not thinking ahead. Was that a joke? No, but I mean, it's true. So then I'm just like, I'm like, what? Because I actually, because I am who I am, I will immediately be like, why are you asking me these questions? Can I, or like, I'm trying to tell you a story, it's like very INTJ way of handling a situation. Obviously I wouldn't do that to your father. I mean, again, it's situational, but like typically I would be like, why do you need to know the person's name? Again, I'm also a very skeptical person, so I don't usually, just like I don't give out my personal information, I wouldn't give out someone else's either, because it goes against my values. But yeah, they do that. I'm just saying, like, that is interesting that happens. Yeah.
Oh, you talking like
the what's his name? Where is he from? Like, how tall is he? What color is his hair? Like, these are all. Well, it's like I get it. He's curious of what I look like or what I'm about, but like, if you're in the middle of telling a story, like I feel like you can't just wait till the end. It's not integral. Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is, why is that so important to them? Why is knowing what I'm saying unimportant? Or at least that's how I view it. It's like, I don't care what you're saying. Are his parents also German American? Like, what? Maybe.
But have you noticed, like when you talk to the ESTP and ISTP, is that kind of the details that they were interested in?
They were. Let me think. Yeah, one guy was, because I was explaining MBTI. I don't remember. This is very INTJ. I honestly forget everything most of the time. It wasn't that important because it was SE.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay.
One guy kept talking about himself. I can tell you that much. But he would ask me like, "Oh, how are you going?" Yeah, he was asking a lot of like very. I really can't remember the details. I just remember overall it was like questions about stuff.
Yeah.
And things.
Okay.
So it wasn't about anything that I was like, there was nothing theoretical. He was not interested at all. And he was the SE Dom. Not the other guy was the auxiliary. He was a little more open to stuff, but he was just like, just ignored it.
Yeah. So this is kind of imagining into an SE Dom's mind. This is what I kind of imagine happens. We tell something that requires a lot of imagination. I tell you a story about someone. He's not going to imagine that. He's going to have to just ask you to give those details so he can see it.
In fact,
I think that's what it is.
And he was doing similar things. Like, how much do you pay for your apartment? Like, I wasn't even talking about it. He would just come back to the same topic, but it was always details about. So it was similar to your father. Like, what's his job? What's that? Oh, where is it? Where's that? What part of that? What part of Gyeonggi-do? Or like that kind of thing. Like, this is very random. I was in the middle of talking about like some philosophy thing about something completely different. He was just on his own track too. Like, it was very. I honestly find it rude, but I was like, whatever. Just that's him. I don't have to engage with him then if he's gonna be dumb.
Yeah, and my speaking to the theory of how I see an SE Dom sees the world is, I'm gonna collect a wide array of data that over time will tell a story. But that story is just something that's going to happen in the background.
He was story building. I mean, I felt that, and I understand SE 100%. I don't not understand him, and that's why I have to keep like switching those. Like, I'm talking to this person, so every conversation, I feel like I was having 3 separate conversations. In fact, someone was. And I'm capable, and I just noticed I was like, oh, he's like, there's like a picture or something, and he's just kind of putting components in and filling in each little component until he built the thing that he was trying to build, which was who is Derek? Yeah, because he honestly was asking personal questions, and yeah, he asked a lot of personal questions. I realized I was very uncomfortable, but I just will tend to either not tell them what they want to hear, or I will lie.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, about a couple things. Because he asked me things that were just not appropriate. And rather having that conversation, I didn't care. Because I didn't care what he knew or didn't know.
Well, that's the main thing I want to talk about, which was, I think, essentially, the more and more I go into just my natural mode, the more that is my running theory right now, which is I think to say that the wider theory, the more a person embraces themselves, the more they realize and understand everything else as well.
And I've had, I guess, a theory lately of the opposite. I am very naturally perfectly complacent with myself. I know everything about myself now. I have for a long time. I feel like I need to spend more time understanding others.
Interesting.
And I'm saying that because I feel like it's truly is that, and I think that there's something there as well. That's why that's occurring.
And the last note I have here is something any NTE, NINTI, I think we've come to discover that they are like polar opposite approaches to that the same world, where NE wishes to explore without borders, and TE wishes to create the borders. NI wishes to explore the inner world without borders. TI wishes to create borders within that inner world.
The exploration with NI, though, is still about narrowing.
Is also about
down
narrowing.
to one vision.
Yes.
How that vision's built, I will leave that out. That's again, I feel like every time I try to describe it, I'm boxing something that can't be boxed.
I guess we'll discuss that in a future podcast.
I just was checking if there was more.
Yeah, that was
nothing matters.
That was the other. Yeah, that was the other idea. Well, yeah. See, that's. I think that is NI and TI wanting to be like, hey, here's an organization, and you being like, if you do that, then I can't see.
Yes, don't poke me in the eyes. My mind's eye.
Well,
I just think I rarely get excited about anything, and I truly don't show when I'm excited. But it is lately there have been things that I've been working on that are good.
It feels like the right thing.
Could I prove any better that I have no idea how to say what I'm thinking or feeling? Things are good, despite physical decay on my personal, which again, very INTJ. I have let my body go to crap. And I'm adding this anecdote. The only reason I was like, why would he say that? It's true. Like the more I focus on what I want to do, like more I focus on the vision, the less that I care about my physical existence, which is not a good thing. And that's why the balance is necessary. That's why I want to learn more, not just, I know myself, but learn more about how other people handle those situations so that I can somewhat replicate that for myself. But autonomously, so unconsciously, because I want to talk a lot more about consciousness and unconsciousness. Because the reason why I'm not taking care of myself is because I'm so focused on what I'm doing that the unconscious, everything is the conscious and unconscious. I feel like it's all focused on that, and they're ignoring this. And so I feel like if I somehow teach my unconscious to be aware of that, it'll help me to check in with myself more often. That is a running hypothesis. Interesting.
I can imagine. I hear the phrase "making the unconscious conscious." I wonder if
that's what I'm trying to say. Well, because I like to feed myself unconsciously. What I do these days is usually I try to go by. That's why times are important for me. It's not that I care so much about getting stuff done. It's like if I just subconsciously know that it's 2:00, and a lot of times NI or something is telling me it's 2:00 without me looking. Feed yourself, and so I will get up. I will go over and I'll make everything, eat everything, and next thing you know, I'm back to work again. And I'm like, did I eat lunch today? And like, well, it's 2:30. You must have eaten lunch. Do you feel full? Yes. Okay, move on. That sounds ridiculous, but that's how it works a lot of it. When I'm really busy. When I'm not busy, sure, I'm just like, I'm hungry because I'm not doing anything. Just chilling out with FI or something stupid. Like, I just find that also very interesting because not everyone's doing that, obviously. In fact, very few types are probably not paying attention to their hunger. That's just one thing.
Absolutely.
Other bodily functions or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I will say the same thing, which is my recent experiments have shown me like a very, I feel, unconventional path that I feel is also very, very exciting to go down. And it's just interesting to me how unconventional it is. Even though it feels like progress, even though it's like progress in a direction completely different from what everyone else is saying is progress. So
yeah, I found that the more we ignore everyone else, the better things go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can end on that note.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea that I agree with. So
excellent.
That is today's episode.
That was.
See ya.
Goodbye.